Hello and welcome to the SEGA News Bits Extra. I'm your host George, and with me is Barry.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about, we're going to do the intro in the beginning where we talk about what we did this week. I'll let you start, Barry.
Oh man, what didn't I do this week?
Busy week?
No, it's actually not been very busy at all. I've been incredibly lazy, getting over some sickness, and God, have I played any games? I've been playing Atari 2600 stuff because I just don't want to think too much.
And that's the type of console that doesn't make you think?
Not too much. I mean, I found that Buck Rogers Sega game from like the early 80s, and so I've been playing that, and that's pretty fun. You like, you go through goalposts and then shoot at things at the same time. It's the arcade version's kind of like a precursor to all the Super Scalar games. It kind of plays like Space Harrier a little bit. So
yeah, and it has like pinkish and weird graphics too, right?
Yeah. It's back when Sega really didn't have too many like unique franchises, you know. So it was like before Yu Suzuki was really creating some stuff that you could claim as Sega. It was licensed, you know. It was all right, but you know, I'm been kind of interested in all of those Atari releases from Sega. And
I have something to kind of tie into that. I went and watched the movie Rampage with The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
It was something. It was a movie. They do this whole thing because like I went in there thinking, oh, this is gonna be a cool monster movie. They're gonna have a bunch of these like weird Atari monsters, and they're just gonna fight it out. And The Rock's gonna make like his 1 or 2 jokes that he does all the time.
Yeah.
And it was sort of trying to be that, but then like they did this whole thing, you know, when you watch these movies where they don't have a budget for like CGI, so they start talking about like they start adding all these like little plot points like, oh, the army, oh, this is this character from the army, so now you have to take time to do this plot, and then we have another billionaire that made this whole thing happen, so now we have to stick with their plot, and all these characters are not even that interesting. Yeah. I mean, it was an okay movie. I think The Rock was calling it the most or the highest rated video game movie, and his apology for doing Doom. It was just an okay movie. I mean, it was fun. It had its fun moments, but it also had really bad moments. So I guess if you guys are gonna go watch it, I don't know why people would watch it. Like, I don't understand what they're doing right now in Hollywood, where they're taking all these like brand names and just like, I don't know, hoping that they work. Like Rampage. They did one for that board game with the sunken ship one. It's just not for me.
You talking about Jumanji? That's not a sunken ship.
No, they did one for the battleships.
Oh, Battleship, yeah, like board. Well, that's Hasbro like trying to create board game and toy movies, you know, with like Transformers and all those toy lines, G.I. Joe. But
they're trying to start their own universe like Marvel.
Yeah, with Rampage, that's because Warner Brothers bought Midway, and so they own all of the Midway catalog, and so they decided to, you know, make a Rampage movie. I think I talked about it like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I liked it for what it was. I didn't have any problem with it. I didn't go into it expecting anything, and so, I mean, I got what I paid for. Plus, I was watching. You know, when you see a movie like on a day off on your own, like you enjoy it more because you're like, I'm not at work, you know?
I didn't think it was terrible. I just thought it was an okay movie. I thought The Rock and George, they had like the best moments in that movie, but yeah.
Should I be called The Rock now and you can be George?
Yeah, that would work. The monkey was pretty great in there. I knew right away when they started calling it George, I'm like, cool, when I leave this theater, people are going to start making comments. Because I went with a cousin and somebody else.
Oh,
and I was like, great, they're going to make comments right after. They took a while, but right when we were driving back home, they were like, you know that the ape was called... I was like, dude, yes, I know.
I think my only like major complaint, and this is stupid, is the fact that all of these movies now, they don't do opening credit sequences anymore. Now they just slam the title at the end, and they did that with this. I was expecting in the very opening of the movie you would get like a boom like Rampage filling the screen, but instead after all the destruction they're doing like a shot where it's panning away and that just says Rampage and it like appears, and I'm like, you don't show that after all the Rampage, you show it during. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean, but let's get
It's stupid.
Let's get into
anyway.
the
Let's
news.
get into the Sega shit.
Because now we're gonna be talking about movies all day. The first bit of news is Sega Legends mobile game has leaked early. We covered this on the website. There was a few screenshots where they showed off some of the characters that will be in the game. So first, let's talk about the obvious. You guys can see it on screen. The new art style this game is having. What do you think about the art style and character designs here?
They look like that program people use on Facebook, you know, where it's like, I've never used it, but they make an avatar of themselves and then pose it, and it's like, can't wait till Monday, you know what I mean?
Exactly, that's exactly what I was thinking. It looks like some generic, like, art style that these new social media platforms are using, and I know this is probably going to be, if we complain about it, I bet you somebody at Sega is going to say, this is not aimed at this hardcore Sega fans. This is being aimed at mainstream audiences that play social media games. But like, in my opinion, it's like, then why use Sega legacy IPs in this game if you're just gonna be like, just put some generic crap in there? I mean, I know they're trying to bank off both, like, oh, the hardcore gamers will come and play for their Streets of Rage or Golden Axe references, and then hopefully the people that you see on Snapchat making their own bit emojis will also play this game, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that will work. I think it didn't work out for Capcom. They did the Puzzle Fighters, and this kind of reminds me of that art style. A lot of fans didn't like Puzzle Fighters art style, and they kind of like shit-talked it. This one is kind of looks like that with big old heads, but like these weird, like, I don't know, it just looks weird. And these are the IPs they have here so far. They have Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Super Monkey Ball, and Sonic the Hedgehog. Anything that surprises you that's here?
No. These are kind of like, as we've seen from the Sega shop, like, these are the IPs that they're putting out there for merchandise. Like, you know, you can get pocket binders and t-shirts and stuff. Like, it's very clear that they're focusing on Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Shinobi. Monkey Ball, they're not really pushing a lot, but it's you know, it's a well-known IP.
It was one of those games that got a bunch of sequels because the first two did really, really well on the GameCube and PlayStation 2, and they kind of milked it all it was worth for a while, and then they didn't sell that well, so now they're like back to step one, I guess. We still have some more Super Monkey Ball news later, but I agree with you. Like, I've been covering Sega for a long time, and one thing I've noticed is that Sega of America loves Golden Axe. They love Streets of Rage. Those are the IPs that a lot of Western fans really like, and those are the ones they try to stick with.
And they really ignore the Saturn.
Yeah, for sure, they do. It's all Sega Genesis because that was the most popular one. They don't totally ignore the Dreamcast, but like, I think it's still underrepresented. Like, Jet Set Radio would have been great on this, and you know, a few other IPs they have. But that's that news. Whatever you guys think, let us know. The next bit of news is Persona 5 has shipped 2.2 million units worldwide, and this is probably the biggest game that Atlus has that sells the most, and it's apparently outsold Persona 4. Who knows how much Persona 4 has sold? Okay, so back in November of last year, the game reached 2 million, so it has sold about 200,000 units since then. So I think the game is already drying up. In my opinion, there's going to be another re-release. This is something that Atlus does a lot. What is your opinions on the sales? Did you expect more or less?
I expected less, to be honest. I'm not really into the whole Persona series, but I recognize how you know, acclaimed it is. And I guess I'm just kind of surprised by how well it's doing, considering it looks like a niche game. Does this sell better than any of Sega's Western releases?
Like, what do you mean Western releases?
Like is this selling?
Yakuza?
Yeah.
I'm assuming this outsold Yakuza, because I mean, like, Yakuza 0 did what, like 500,000 units in Japan? Do you think it did 1.5 million units in America? I doubt it.
Yeah.
Maybe reached 1 million. Like, when it's all said and done, maybe a little bit more. And I know somebody's gonna be watching this and being like, actually, in China, it sold 2 billion copies. No,
yeah.
But in my opinion, I don't know. This is really big for Atlus. This is really big for Sega. I'm not going to be surprised when they start milking this with re-releases. And and I don't think fans will complain because they usually add more content. So a lot of fans are probably waiting for a re-release to replay it. And the next bit of news. Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition joins Sega Forever, and I actually downloaded this and played a little bit of it, and it's actually surprisingly good. I don't like playing with the gyro that much, but you could talk about this. You know the history about this game, right?
Yeah, so the original, when the App Store first launched, Super Monkey Ball was a launch title. It was very simplistic. If I remember correctly, it was like sprites and then 3D environments. And I haven't played that in a long time. However, this one was released as Super Monkey Ball 2 Sakura Edition. And I think they dropped the 2 and then just started kind of releasing this as the de facto Super Monkey Ball. And then, you know, you can see it's from 2010. So I think it had compatibility issues. It went away. And then they brought it back and rolled it into the Sega Forever branding. I saw this coming for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess this is kind of one of the last releases we're going to be seeing for a bit from Sega Forever, because as we talked about a while ago, that they are now focusing on porting new games that are, you know, like actual bigger ports. I'm not really sure exactly what they're focusing on, but we're going to be seeing less of those ROM releases from Genesis games, and we're going to maybe be seeing the occasional bringing existing games like what's out there, Choo Choo Rocket and Jet Set Radio. I could see being folded into the Sega Forever thing. Jet Set Radio hasn't been playable for a long time on iOS and Android, so it's about time they bring it back, considering how big a deal that was when it released back in 2012.
So what do you think, Barry? Do you think this is a good idea, a good game for mobile platforms?
I think this is a great game for the iPhone because it uses the gyroscope. If you've ever played the arcade version, you roll a ball, and if you've ever played the console versions, you use your stick. So it's never been really one way to control Monkey Ball, but I feel like tilting is an interesting way because you're not controlling the ball, you're controlling the environment, which is a little different. I haven't seen any like updates to this since it's joined Sega Forever, but it definitely is worth checking out. I would say it's a must download just because it's free with ad support. And also I should mention that if you're watching this and you haven't commented, I did make a post on the Patreon, and there's a few copies to give away. I think I have an iOS US and iOS worldwide code still. So
another thing I like to do on the Sega Bits blog is ask people, our readers, questions. One of the questions we asked this week is, should Sega still do console exclusives? I left my answer on that post. You could read it there if you want, but what do you think, Barry?
I think it's about time that they stop. It used to be because I felt that the console's hardware was so different that, for example, you couldn't see Jet Set Radio Future on the PS2. It wouldn't have been possible. But now we're getting to that point where I feel like PS2 or PS4 and Xbox One are so similar, and the Switch can, I think, as we've seen with some of the Sega ports, they do, you know, lack a little bit from the other two. But I don't see a reason anymore. I don't know. Outside of maybe the console makers helping make the games possible. But is that really happening anymore with Yakuza?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I said. Like, I think it's worth it if a company's helping you promote the game or fund the funding and making the game better, then I guess you can stay exclusive. But if they don't, then I don't see the point either.
Yeah. What was it? There wasn't a deal with Nintendo to make 3 or 4 exclusive Sonic games, and I believe Nintendo helped with the development costs for those, so that makes sense. Yakuza was struggling, and Sony helped bring over the 5th one digitally, so that makes sense. But I'm trying to think, outside of Bayonetta, really, which is basically just Sega owning the IP, none of the games that are exclusive right now with the Sega name really make sense being exclusive anymore.
And that's it for this episode of the Sega News Bits Extra. We'll talk to you guys next week about more extra Sega News Bits. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.